Namibia's central bank announced yesterday that its repo lending rate will remain steady at 7%. Economists say this could suggest early signs of a recovery in the domestic economy, especially in the vital mining sector. To tell us more on this decision, we cross live to Namibia and we're joined by Dr. John Steytler, Director of Research at Bank of Namibia. Thank you very much for joining us, Doctor. Well, South African Reserve Bank surprised everyone by lowering the repo rate last week by 5 basis points. Given the strong links between the two economies, what's the justification behind Namibia not lowering your rates?
Thank you, Mantla, for that question. Well, first of all, we considered mainly Namibian economic conditions. We did also our analysis on the world economy. And from our perspective, we have seen encouraging signs that the world economy is indeed recovering. Of course, one can question how sustainable that recovery would be. But nevertheless, we have seen some very good news coming from certain parts of the world. We have noted that big economies like France, Germany, and even Japan has shown some bit of positive output growth in the second quarter of this year. Also, in response to this better news from these economies, commodity prices have started to firm. This is a trend that we have started to witness for some time now. But we are still a bit cautiously optimistic about the sustainable recovery of commodity prices. But nevertheless, broadly we can say that that feeling that the world has almost come to an end, it's over. With regard to the domestic economy, we have also seen encouraging signs of recovery. You have noted the mining sector. The mining sector, of course, is very critical for Namibia. In the second quarter of this year, we have seen some bit of recovery in diamond sales. Of course, diamond sales is one of the key export commodities of Namibia. But it's not only the mining sector. We have also seen some bit of early recovery in other sectors. We've seen a revival in construction activities. Motor vehicles still remain relatively firm. And also building plans passed and completed, which indicate to us that there could be future construction activities, also came in quite well. So based on all this information, we decided to keep our repo rate unchanged for the time being. May I also mention that in our view, monetary policy should be forward-looking. So in other words, what happened in the past we can't control, but we can try to control what's happening in the future. And also monetary policy tend to work through a transmission mechanism. And that transmission mechanism is not always instantaneously, but often there is a lag effect. So we believe that the past doses of monetary easing will still come into effect later.
Now, we know the picture has been improving slightly, as you rightfully mentioned. What is Namibia's inflation outlook, though?
Our inflation outlook is quite okay. We've seen quite a significant stabilization in prices. Our latest available figures are at 7.5%. We think it's going to stabilize around that level. But nevertheless, inflation is also largely determined by exogenous factors. And we know that in the past, in particular, oil prices and food prices were the main culprits for high inflation in Namibia. And with imminent recovery of the world economy, there is, of course, this upside risk that oil prices might rise too fast, and that could filter into our domestic inflation. Equally with other inputs in industrial production, that could also go into inflation. But in the longer term perspective, we think that globally prices will remain slow for some time to come. Some of the big economies in the world actually are in deflation territory. It includes our economies like the US, Japan is still in deflation. So we think globally, we don't expect prices to increase as rapidly as prior to the economic crisis.
What is the growth forecast for 2009-2010, and what will be the key drivers for that growth?
Mantla, let me start with our growth forecast for this year. For this year, we expect a slight contraction. We expect the economy to contract by about 0.6%. It's largely on account of the mineral sector. For next year, we are slightly more optimistic. We expect there will be a rebound in minerals, in particular diamond production. But in addition to diamond production, we are also very optimistic about uranium output. We also hope other sectors will start to respond in response to the more relaxed monetary policy and also the fiscal stimulus. So we right now expect that growth next year in 2010 could be in the order of about 4%.